That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, before we dive into anything, really quickly, I have to give the official announcement. We are having our Fantasy Flock meetup on January 15th in Tampa, Florida, 3 p.m. at Sparkman's Wharf. Now, please make it out. It will be a ton of fun. Of course, I will be there. I'd love to meet as many of y'all as possible. I think that should be it, though, talking about that. That's self-explanatory. But what's not self-explanatory is we are going to be diving into Travis Etienne here from a Dynasty fantasy football context, and why I think that right now you should be going out and buying him. I know the cat's out of the bag. Please hear me out. I know that everybody who clicks on this video already knows how I feel on Travis Etienne, someone I was drafting almost every single rookie draft last year, along with our guy Trey Lance, of course. But Travis Etienne was one of my most drafted rookies in the first round. Sadly, we did not get to see his rookie season, but I'm thinking he is setting up for a smash in year 2. And a lot of people have a sour taste left in their mouth with Travis Etienne based on the preseason back in 2021. But going to be excited to go through, debunk the haters on Travis Etienne. Before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment letting me know how stupid I am and why Travis Etienne's not a value in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, if you want to get into a Dynasty League with us, if you want to have access to our Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, if you want to go get in those mock drafts you see on the channel, if you want to get in a Dynasty group chat, you want an in-depth podcast breaking down your Dynasty team, you want a fantasy vlog never got, everything can be found over there on Patreon, which the link will be in the description of the video as well as the comment section. But I think that should be it. Let's go through and let's discuss Travis Etienne, who as of now is being valued as a low-end running back 2 in fantasy. And I think that this is Travis Etienne's floor. Now, of course, I'm recording this after James Robinson goes out there and tears his ACL. Ruptures his Achilles. A much more significant injury that we will be talking about at the end of the video in the outlook on James Robinson as well. So Travis Etienne should be trending in the right direction. I mean, with Travis Etienne, you should be a lot more excited about him this week than you were 2 weeks ago. But if we are going through and looking at that low-end running back 2 price tag, the reason I'm saying that is I believe it's the floor of what you are going to see for Travis Etienne with his fantasy value going forward is the historical comparisons of the prospect profile that we have for Travis Etienne. Now, we're going to be diving into a ton of players over the next few weeks. I'm going to be diving into buying or selling Jalen Waddle, buying or selling Kyle Pitts, and we're going to be able to go through and look at not only their prospect profile, but also their rookie season with the production that they had, put it into context in what other players compare historically in how their own careers played out. However, we don't have the luxury of doing that with Travis Etienne. I mean, even if y'all want to go through and pull up the preseason stats, that's laughable. Of course, we're not going to be talking about preseason here. If anybody wants to come out and say, Mason, you idiot, Travis Etienne wasn't even with the first team during the preseason. It was the preseason. Do you not remember what Urban Meyer did here? Do you not remember that, James Robinson wasn't the starting running back either at the beginning of this season? Do you not remember who it was? It was Carlos Hyde. Like, what the hell are we talking about here? Urban Meyer is gone. Urban Meyer was a clown. This should be a much better situation for the team who invested a first-round pick into Travis Etienne to go out there and use him. He was going to have the job anyway his rookie season. Just going to take a little bit of time as it did with James Robinson. However, moving beyond that, let's kind of circle back. Let's go back to his rookie profile. And going back over there to Patreon, y'all know we had a 100-plus page Dynasty rookie draft guide this last offseason. We'll have another one available on Patreon for the 2022 class of rookies this year. But what were the 4 criteria that we went through and we looked at for our running back prospects coming into the NFL? The number one thing that you look at, and it's not even close. I mean, if you're looking at athleticism, production in college, NFL draft capital, size, receiving game ability, the number one thing that matters is going to be that NFL draft capital. And I'm not coming out here and saying NFL teams know the best. NFL teams are right every single time. Of course, that's not the case. But the reason that NFL draft capital matters so much at the running back position compared to what it will at the wide receiver position is with these wide receivers, NFL draft capital will mean different things for a different wide receiver prototype. I mean, the perfect example of this would be Henry Ruggs versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, with St. Brown, yes, he falls to the 4th round for the Detroit Lions in that 2021 draft class. And I don't necessarily think you can come out here and say, oh, he was the best value in the NFL draft. because with St. Brown, he's going to be a lot more valuable for your fantasy team than he will be for his NFL team, because he is not the wide receiver demanding defensive attention. He's not the wide receiver keeping the safeties back. He's the wide receiver that's moving the chains, very similar to Hunter Renfrow, running routes underneath and closer to the line of scrimmage, which is a more replaceable position compared to that field stretching wide receiver that is the elite speed, that's going to be playing on the outside, that will be keeping two safeties back, that while he may not necessarily draw a lot of volume from a fantasy football perspective, just his presence on the field with that speed and how it changes the defensive coordinator's mindset going into the game, he will actually be valued a little bit higher in the NFL draft compared to those slot wide receivers that may draw more targets. However, at running back, it's different. At running back, what you need is you just need a coaching staff saying, this is our guy, this is who we're going to get carries to. I mean, very rarely are you getting the 2018 Denver Broncos. Very rarely are you getting the 2021 San Francisco 49ers, where you have a team going and investing into two rookie running backs, and then the guy that doesn't have the team investment, AKA Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, also with Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon, very rarely does the guy with no team investment go out there and actually get the job over the player that had a significant amount of resources poured into him that previous offseason. Now, of course, it does happen. There are always outliers. You can go and point to Tom Brady and say, oh my God, Mason, how are you talking about NFL draft capital? And Tom Brady was picked in the 6th. Like, come on, are we really going down that road? If you're looking at a large sample, it definitely matters. Nothing correlates as much. So to just start with this sample size, we're going to cut it down. We're going to draw just a hard line looking at running backs over the past 6 years that were drafted in the 1st and 2nd round of the NFL draft. And we will be knocking down running back by the criteria that we have set based on our historical analysis that we laid out in that Dynasty rookie draft guide. Now, moving on from this, what was another critical piece of information that we looked at the running back position? And this matters a lot more at running back than it does at wide receiver, as we've done the research for. That's actually going to be the 40-yard dash time. I know a lot of people say that the 40-yard dash time doesn't matter. It actually does. If you're actually looking at the information that we have historically, it does correlate to success at the next level. And the threshold that we have set at that line is around the 4.57, the 4.58, the 4.59, the 4.60. That's about the range you need to be in. Of course, Travis Etienne blows that out of the water. He has the 4.45. So let's go through, and the first thing I want to do is let's look at that subsection of running backs that were selected in the 1st and 2nd round, and let's take out the running backs that did not run a 4.59. And the running backs that were not able to run that 4.59 were Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Josh Jacobs. So let's remove them from the data set, and let's look at what we have left over, and let's throw on another little threshold there to just shrink that subset a little bit more, because now we already have athletic running backs that got the team investment, so you know that they're going to have a chance at the starting job at the next level. Now, what else are we looking for, particularly in a PPR format, that helps us identify the pass-catching running backs at the next level? And that is going to be college target share. We've done a lot of research trying to figure out exactly how we can identify those running backs that are going to be able to catch passes at the next level. And if you're just looking at receptions, if you're just looking at receiving yards, even if you convert it to a per game basis, that's not going to help you at all. Of course it will help a little bit, but it's not going to help you nearly as much as looking at a running back's actual target share. And the perfect example of this is if you go through and if you look at Travis Etienne, well, yes, he had 4 receptions a game in Clemson. Now, that is incredibly impressive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is a significantly better pass-catching running back than Najee Harris. Because if you're actually converting that over to a team target share, where maybe Najee Harris had less receptions, less targets, but if you're looking at the fact that Alabama threw the ball way less than Clemson, we actually kind of get a better individual context, knowing that offenses are wildly different in college football, and we're actually able to see how running backs reacted in their offenses. Another great example is Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor played at Wisconsin. He had barely any targets, barely any receptions, but it was because Wisconsin didn't throw the ball. Jonathan Taylor, clearly he could catch it, demonstrated by his 10.7% team college target share. And if we're going through and we're setting the threshold that we observed for these pass-catching running backs coming into the NFL level, that's going to be an 8.5% team college target share that you need to be a pass-catching running back at the next level. And the running backs that did not make that cut, that were drafted in the 1st and 2nd round of the past 6 seasons, were A.J. Dillon, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, Ronald Jones, Kerryon Johnson, Darius Geis, and Derrick Henry. Now, of course, there's some great running backs on that list. That's not necessarily to say that you shouldn't be drafting any running back that doesn't hit that threshold. But we're trying to draw historical comparisons of what we've seen with Travis Etienne. And here with Travis Etienne, I mean, he crushes it. Obviously, he's up there at like 12.5%. And now if we go through and look at the running backs that are left over, I mean, you just have the who's who at the running back position. I mean, this past draft class, you actually have 3 guys. Now, of course, we don't know exactly how these players are going to pan out, but you have Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams hitting those thresholds. Now, Javonte Williams, of course, he split the backfield with Melvin Gordon. He didn't come out and be a running back 1 as we expected him to be at the end of the season. But I think we can all agree. I mean, the one game Melvin Gordon missed, Javonte Williams came out and crushed. I mean, Javonte Williams is going to be a top 2 startup round pick this offseason, and it's not going to be close. He's valued at a completely different tier right now of Travis Etienne. And of course, I have Javonte Williams ranked ahead of Travis Etienne in our own dynasty rankings. Najee Harris was already a dynasty running back 1. We don't need to be talking about that. Now, in the 2020 draft class, you actually had DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and Cam Akers hitting those thresholds. Cam Akers, I want to make the argument he would have been a running back 1 this year. We had him as our dynasty running back 4 last offseason before the torn Achilles. So, I mean, you have 3 stud running backs on this list as well, all running back 1s in fantasy. In the 2019 draft class, you had no running backs hitting these thresholds. In the 2018 class, you had another stud running back. You had Saquon Barkley. I mean, of course, he's going to be one of the best running back prospects of all time. But you also had Rashad Penny. I loved Rashad Penny coming out because he checked every single box, as you've seen with Travis Etienne. And with Rashad Penny, the issue wasn't talent. I'm comfortable saying at this point, I think that we're not going to get too many haters coming out and arguing with us about this, because we've been saying this for a while. With Rashad Penny, if he was able to stay healthy, he would have been great. Simply injuries. That's what it comes down to. I mean, we kind of see this past week against the Detroit Lions. I mean, he just won people their fantasy football championships. With Rashad Penny, he would have been great. I know that's a hot take, but it is what it is. Going to 2017, more stud running backs hitting this threshold. The only running backs made it past the list: Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. All have been running back 1s respectively. 2016, the only running back who made it, Ezekiel Elliott. So if you're going through, you're looking at this list, it is the who's who of running back. Travis Etienne is on that list, and now you're looking up, I mean, what Travis Etienne can do in 2022. Now, of course, we had a lot of people coming out and fading DeAndre Swift this last offseason, saying, oh no, DeAndre Swift going to be playing in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. He's not going to get every single touch out of his backfield. You can't draft DeAndre Swift. And while I may agree, DeAndre Swift, he was not going to be getting every touch out of his backfield. He was not going to be playing in a good offense at all. We were still just drafting Travis Etienne. I'm sorry, we were drafting DeAndre Swift everywhere you could. And the reason I'm kind of switching up the names is because they're the same player. I mean, if you're going through, if you're looking at the prospect profiles for this guy, I mean, here, Travis Etienne, 4.45 40-yard dash. I mean, DeAndre Swift, 4.48. If you're looking at the size, Travis Etienne, a 30.8 BMI, weighed 215 pounds. I mean, DeAndre Swift, 212 pounds. College target share, they're both great pass catching running backs coming out of college. Neither of them have the size. Neither of them have the playing style to go out there and be Ezekiel Elliott, be Dalvin Cook, be Derrick Henry, and see 25 touches a game. But what they do have is the ability to carry a load in the red zone and get the touches inside the 10-yard line and get every single target out of the backfield. And that is what we've discussed for so long now. There are 4 running backs that fit perfectly in this mold that we've discussed for years now. You have Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne. They're the running backs that may not be Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, just gobbling up 300 plus touches every single season. But they're the running backs that aren't getting the empty calories between the 20-yard lines. We've saw this for year after year after year. We saw this for years in Green Bay with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams split the backfield 40-60 with Aaron Jones. They were damn close to 50-50, but you couldn't play Jamal Williams because the only touches he got were carries between the 20-yard lines, which, I mean, those touches have no value. Whereas Aaron Jones, the guy getting the targets out of the backfield and the touches inside the red zone, I mean, he is the guy going out there and dominating. We saw this same thing come through with DeAndre Swift this past season. And with DeAndre Swift, he was playing in one of the worst offenses in the NFL, but it didn't matter based on his usage in the receiving game. There's no reason to believe that Travis Etienne can't do just that. And with the injury to James Robinson, I mean, I think that Travis Etienne is shaping up perfectly to possibly be a little bit more than that this next season. I mean, if you're looking at the 2 recent running backs that have torn their Achilles in the NFL, I mean, we'll go with 3. Let's first start off with, one of my favorite players ever. We have him in almost every single Dynasty league in Cam Akers. Now with Cam Akers, I'll be the first person to admit, maybe I actually underrated Cam Akers this season, as when he tore his when he tore his Achilles. Obviously, ACL is a little more common. But when he tore his Achilles, I was going through telling everyone, sell, sell, sell. This is not a good situation. He's never going to be back at 100%. This is an injury that takes years to recover from, and I mean years to get back to 100%. So I was cashing out on Cam Akers while he still kind of had that name appeal. Now, I will admit, Cam Akers coming off the IR at the end of the year, this is something we have to be on the lookout for. If Cam Akers comes out and he dominates in the real life NFL playoffs, that's going to be something we have to take note of for James Robinson, because of course, modern medicine just exponentially gets better. But the other 2 examples we have, D'Onta Foreman tearing his Achilles in 2017. And I mean, if you're looking at this, a torn Achilles in 2017, what did it do to his career? In 2018, 7 carries. 2019, 0 carries. And in 2020, that's when he officially made his way back. That's when he actually was getting implemented into an offense. He only had 22 carries, but still, I mean, he would have had more if it wasn't for Derrick Henry. Now, 2021, he's fully back. But if you look at that, took him out of the 2018 and 2019 season. Very similar. Marlon Mack tears his Achilles week 1 in 2020. Now, technically, he's able to make it back in 12 months. Technically, he comes back in 2021. But he is only implemented into this offense for 28 carries. And with those 28 carries, he sees his lowest career yards per carry. He has no athleticism whatsoever. Since then, he's been a healthy scratch for weeks now. Now, of course, a lot of that is to do with Jonathan Taylor. But we have seen that these running backs working back from their torn Achilles, they're not going to be the guys that they were beforehand for a very long time. At least that's what we've seen historically. And it would be different if James Robinson tore his Achilles the same time that Cam Akers did. That if he did that before the start of the 2021 season. But he did that at the very end of the year. There's almost a 0% chance that he is ready for training camp, preseason, or probably not even the beginning of the year. I mean, if it's a 12-month recovery process, which historically speaking, it's sometimes a little bit longer than that, he's not getting ready until 2023. So it looks like Travis Etienne may be just Aaron Jones next year in Jacksonville. While yes, it's going to be a significantly worse offense. While yes, it's going to be a very bad team. We just saw DeAndre Swift come through and crush with that same exact context, with that same exact profile. So I'm buying low on Travis Etienne. Y'all know what we talk about all the time. Running backs in Dynasty on their rookie contracts are the most valuable thing that you can ever go out there and buy. So I mean, if you're asking me, Mason, do you want Travis Etienne or do you want Ezekiel Elliott? It's kind of close. Like, let me run over to Patreon really quick. And let me actually pull up my Dynasty rankings and see where we have Travis Etienne. We have not updated these since the James Robinson torn Achilles. So I'll tell you right now, we're probably going to be moving Travis Etienne up quite a bit. Let me see where we have him. Yeah, so right now we have Travis Etienne ranked as our running back 17. So we had him as a mid running back 2, already ahead of guys like Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, Michael Carter, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think we're probably going to move Travis Etienne up definitely a tier. I think that he's probably going to be getting moved alongside the David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon tier running backs, because I think that Travis Etienne's setting up perfectly for this next year. But I think that should be it. Please let me know if this video helped y'all out. Please let me know if you want to see more deep dives like this in the future down there in the comment section. And of course, you can go check out our Dynasty rankings, get into a Dynasty league with us, yada, 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 all over there on Patreon. The links will be in the description of the video and in the comment section. Please go down there, drop a like, subscribe, only if you play Dynasty. I think that should be it. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great day.